Greetings, everyone. My name is Wyatt Sutherland, and welcome once again to the story so far. Before we begin today's lore delve, we would like to announce that the story so far has a Patreon account. That means that if you like learning about Eberron and fantasy role playing games, you can now support us financially by going to patreon.com/TS2F. Patreon.com/TS2F. Link is in the description below. We have a number of patron tiers with great perks, but just to highlight a few, pledging $1 a month gets you a credit at the end of our videos. There will be a screen at the end of this video where you can see where that scrolling credits will be. $3 a month gets you access to our Discord, where you can interact with us and begin building a community around TS2F and around Eberron Unlimited. And $5 a month grants you access to our videos ad-free, as well as readable PDFs for all of our scripts. So if any of those things interest you, be sure to go check out patreon.com/TS2F so we can continue making these videos happen and continue making them better and better. Thank you for any support you choose to give, and thank you for watching this video. As always, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Sources will be linked in the description below, and without further ado, let's get into the lore of the Kraken in the pulp adventure world of Eberron. Krakens are enigmatic creatures. They dwell in the deepest and darkest sea trenches, ranging from the farthest reaches of the Thunder Sea to the eponymous Kraken Bay between Erenal and Corvair. Even undersea peoples like the Sahuagin or merfolk are unlikely to have ever seen them physically. Most, whether they breathe air or water, will have only ever seen the remnants of a Kraken's presence: death, destruction, and whirlpools of catastrophic size. Needless to say that a sailor's life is never more dangerous than when voyaging between Sharn and Storm Reach. For if a storm pushes you far enough off course that you end up in the open waters of the Thunder Sea, well, there be monsters, as they say. The Kraken's appearance is a mystery, but most descriptions indicate that the creature bears some resemblance to a cephalopod, with some notable oddities. They have an almost humanoid torso structure terminating in a head resembling that of a huge predatory fish. Most descriptions also mention at least two large crustacean claws extending from the torso. Large is, of course, an understatement, considering one of these appendages could snap a Lyrandar galleon in two with no difficulty. These creatures are truly massive, ranging in size from around 20 feet to a half-mile long. While the Kraken's size is daunting, the creature's most menacing traits are their age and intellect. The oldest legends tell us that Krakens have existed as long as the dragons, and have been both friend and foe to them across the eons. If our sources are to be believed, Krakens may be some of the first life forms to have ever emerged from the primordial chaos of creation. Some tales state that the Krakens fought the dragons during the Age of Demons. If this is true, then one must wonder, for whom were these ancient aquatic titans fighting? The fiends? The Daukir from Zoriat, Plain of Madness? Neither would be my guess. None of the stories indicate that the Krakens were aligned with the children of Kyber, and the Daukir didn't invade Corvair till many millennia later. My personal theory is that they were created by another force ascending to power in that age: the gods. Specifically, the traitor gods, known as the Dark Six. Perhaps these beings were the first creations of the Devourer, dark deity of disaster. Kraken attacks are reported to always be followed by torrential sea storms, an omen often attributed to the will of the Devourer. It seems likely, and yet, the Sahuagin tribes, a people known to worship the Devourer, whom they call Shargon, claim that those who venerate Krakens are blasphemers of their god. If the Krakens are the creations of Shargon, then why would the Sahuagin think this? Perhaps they're mistaken, or perhaps the Kraken's origins can't be so easily apprehended. It is unknown if Krakens keep any form of society between individuals of the species. All appearances, They seem as territorial and isolationist with each other as they are with mortals. However, while it is difficult to verify, it is said that krakens take slaves from among their victims, dragging them down to work in their hidden lairs beneath the waves. Some tales from the Sahawagans speak of cults among the sea peoples who worship individual krakens as sea gods. Cults devoted to extolling krakens are not foreign to the land either. While kraken worship is all but expected in the Dromite city of Fralkek on the mouth of the Scar River, even in higher society, the krakens have become a symbol of power over the sea and sky. House Lyrandar of the Dragon Mark of Storms, famous for their nautical and aeronautical vessels, use the kraken as their sigil, and beyond their use in heraldry, some speak in hushed whispers of a cult of kraken worshippers that counts the highest ranking scions of the house amongst its membership. Rumors say that there is a belief in this cult that the kraken are, in fact, the reincarnated scions of House Lyrandar, who've ascended to a higher state of being after death. Perhaps this belief could be written off as mere superstition, the games of bored oligarchs with delusions of grandeur. If not for the fact that House Lyrandar ships are suspiciously unhindered by kraken attacks. Amongst the kraken, there are a few individuals whose names are known above the waves, all but one, Zortharkus. Warnings have reached the ears of merchants and admirals that an empire is forming beneath far western Thunder Sea. The name Zortharkus hissed with resentment and fear. Some say that this kraken is as old as the world and bears the blood of Kyber herself. Lyrandar cultists believe that it is the reincarnation of their founder, Lyran. Stories circulate of its ability to grant favored mortal servants access to ancient and horrible spellcraft, and that it calls more of these servants to its cause with every word that we speak. Perhaps one day it may even bring these armies to bear against the people of the land, raising the sea to swallow us whole, and not even the highest mountain peaks will be a refuge. Needless to say, if you find yourself sailing in the Thunder Sea or Kraken Bay and spot a small uncharted island off the port bow, remember, it may actually be Zortharkus on the hunt. Transitioning into the more podcasty part of this video, I think it's important to point out how little information regarding krakens there is in Eberron-specific sources. Most, and really like 80% of the information is contained in one section of one book from the 3.5 edition of D&D, the Eberron sourcebook, The City of Storm Reach, published in 2008 by Wizards of the Coast, and accredited to Keith Baker, Nicholas Logue, James Desborough, and C.A. Solomon. Krakens aren't even mentioned in either of the official published 5th edition Eberron sourcebooks. In fact, most of the info I could find for the Kraken across all sources on D&D Beyond was in the Mythic Odysseys of Theros sourcebook. So, as it stands, most of what Krakens are and mean in Eberron specifically is left up to the DM's discretion. And if you've been in the Eberron fanbase long enough, you'll know that this isn't anything new. Keith Baker consistently makes it clear in all the ways he's ever spoken about Eberron that the setting is designed to be malleable to the DM. Wayfinder's Guide even has a whole section in the beginning of the book outlining how, quote, nothing is set in stone, end quote. As Dale Kingsmill of the Monarch Factory would say, the setting is vague and evocative, and in my opinion, it's pretty perfectly so. So what we do know is that Krakens exist. They have existed since the Age of Demons. They interact regularly with dragons, and they have cults dedicated to worshipping them both on land and under the sea. We know that they have tentacles, but the rest of their description on the Eberron wiki page is derived from a 3rd edition monster manual that pretty much just kind of stuck with the giant squid type of kraken, which, of course, since it's not a canon source of Eberron information, We don't have to use that description if we don't want to. Personally, I really liked the way that the Kraken looked in the 2010 Clash of the Titans remake. So, as far as I'm concerned, that's what Krakens look like in Eberron Unlimited. We don't know when, why, or how they began to exist. We don't know what they look like, sound like, or act like beyond aggressively destroying ships that enter their hunting territories. And we don't know any individuals by name besides Lortharchus. All of these things are meant to be determined by the GM. So, how can GMs incorporate Krakens into their Eberron games? Well, for starters, Krakens are allowed to be mysterious. You don't need to answer all of the questions about them in order to include them in your Eberron games. This means any adventurers, or any adventures rather, with nautical themes such as Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, or Critical Role's Call of the Netherdeep could be reworked to fit into Eberron and would naturally have room for Krakens. The only questions you have to answer as the DM are the ones that help set up the plot. So, for example, Exploring Eberron is a fantastic sourcebook on the DM's Guild written by Keith Baker himself. And oh my god, do I want it so bad, but I don't have the money for it right now. Anyways, it has a whole section in it that expands the lore of the underwater peoples of Eberron, including their many and complex societies, which we will be definitely doing videos over once I buy the book. But to keep it short, there's the eternal dominion of the Sahuagin, the sea elf colonies surrounding the Ireni Isles, and many small, kind of, in my mind, petty kingdoms of merfolk, just to name the biggest groups of people. So, how did these people interact with the threats that Kraken pose? What about the growing threat of Zortharchus? Personally, I think that the Critical Role adventure would be my choice. I would retrofit it for an Eberron adventure set in the Thunder Sea, using Zortharchus as one of, if not the only, BBEG. You could also incorporate Kraken cults into any campaign near coastlines, especially in Zendrick, the Demon Wastes, the Shadow Marches, Droam, Kibara, or the Lazar Principalities. I could definitely see a Kraken cult taking the place of the water cult of elemental evil in the Princes of the Apocalypse adventure module, perhaps with Zortharchus at the center of their worship. That adventure does, after all, take you to an underwater temple. The main thing to remember is that Krakens are supposed to be high-level enemies. While their stat blocks are somewhat lacking, and you can check out Pointy Hat or Runesmith's Kraken Week videos for great ways to fix that issue, Krakens are a big deal in Eberron, as much as they are in any other setting. Be sure to emphasize that even seeing one of these creatures in person and surviving the encounter is an amazing feat. If you're playing at high levels, killing a Kraken is an amazing experience that will make the world look at your PCs as true heroes. If you're playing at low levels, Krakens make for great puzzle or survival encounters that will leave your players and their characters in awe as they float away on the debris of whatever ship they were riding on that a Kraken just showed up and destroyed. Another very important thing to remember is that Eberron isn't a medieval high fantasy setting. Magic, technology, and society, really every element of this world is steeped in modernity and industry. So instead of having the players on a sailing vessel, you could put them in an airship that's taken down by the Krakens, or taken down by the storms a Kraken summons. Or they could be in a submarine set into the Thunder Sea to patrol the depths, or possibly even try to spy on Zortharchus' growing empire. If I did that, I'd definitely borrow the aesthetics of the submarine from the 2001 animated Disney film Atlantis. That movie is perfect for getting some of the visual language I love to use when imagining Eberron, and definitely use when describing and characterizing Eberron Unlimited. Just remember that Eberron is at its core pulp adventure. And if you want to know what that means, check out my video on the origins of Eberron, which you can get to by clicking the link on the screen now. So, on to players. If you're getting ready to play in a Kraken or underwater themed Eberron campaign, or you want to play a character that brings the power of the sea to the land, how do you make a character that incorporates the Kraken? Well, Zortharkus would make a great patron for the Fathomless Warlock. No matter what theory one subscribes to regarding how he gets his power, what is for sure is that Zortharkus has power to give and would do so for a price. Perhaps you were a Marine captured by Zortharkus and given the choice to die or to serve him on the land, being granted power, but cursed to drown as your lungs magically fill with water if you ever disobey. Another option is to play a Tempest Domain cleric as a Kraken priest character. Other Kraken cultist builds might include House Lyrandar characters. Of course, I always recommend playing a Storm Sorcerer for any dragon-marked House Lyrandar scion. However, one of my favorite ideas while writing the script was to make an Armorer Artificer or a Transmutation Wizard using the Simic Scientist background from Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica. In that setting, the Simics use occult sciences to augment their body with parts of other biological organisms, and I really love the idea of using the Simic hybrid race with the Simic scientist background to be a Lyrandar Kraken cultist who has augmented their body with fishy or crabby parts in an effort to ascend to godhood as a Kraken. You could also use the Reborn lineage from Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft for a character who's been forcibly experimented on by Kraken cultists. If you're looking for a hunter of Krakens rather than a servant of them, you could play an Oath of the Open Sea paladin, perhaps having sworn to hunt down a specific Kraken, like Captain Ahab from Moby Dick. You could play a Draconic Bloodline sorcerer in Conflict, with a Kraken who killed your Draconic ancestor. Tempest or Nature Domain clerics could work as priests of the Sovereign Host, or even of Shargon the Devourer, in opposition to a Kraken cult. The Swashbuckler Rogue obviously works for a character braving the high seas, and the Circle of the Land Druid could also work as someone attempting to protect a sacred coastal area from the ravages of a Kraken attack. Or if you wanted to play an underwater Circle of the Land Druid, you could a Circle of the Shepherd Druid or a Circle of the Land Druid really could work as great underwater druids who are seeking to protect maybe an endangered species from Krakens who are hunting it. Finally, I could also see a traumatized sea dweller like a Triton, Sea Elf, or Lokatha, with the Haunted One background, either wanting vengeance on a Kraken that destroyed their home, or swearing to never again enter the sea after suffering such destruction. This idea would obviously go well with an Oath of Vengeance paladin, but also pretty much any ranger, fighter, or barbarian would work as well. Honestly, the only limit is your imagination. If you can tie your race, class, background, or any combination of the above to a Kraken, it can work in Eberron, as it's stated in Rising from the Last War. It literally says in the book, if there's a place for it in D&D, then there's a place for it in Eberron. You just do a little bit of legwork to make it happen. We're going to go ahead and finish this video. This week's episode is brought to you by Kraken Week, which itself is brought to you by the fantastic YouTube channels Pointy Hat and Jenny D. If you haven't heard of them, first of all, how? And second of all, go check them out. They do amazing work in the TTRPG space, providing advice for DMs and players alike, as well as adventure inspiration or just free adventures that you can download as PDFs, original monsters with stat blocks, NPCs, and so much more. Thank you to Pointy Hat and Jenny D for organizing this community event. Don't forget to like this video, Share it with someone who loves fantasy role-playing games, and subscribe, ringing the bell to stay updated for all of our future content. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.